What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? Recording this a little late on Wednesday night, and we're less than 24 hours away from the Patriots taking on the Jets. And let's face it, 2.5 weeks ago, this game didn't look great on paper. I'd say it's a lot more interesting now. Not going to lie, I'm kind of leaning the dog. Kind of leading the Jerod Mayo led, run the ball, play defense, Patriots. So we will dive into a little bit of that game. Baker Mayfield on Bryce Young, which he was obviously benched this week. Andy Dalton starting. And I think Baker is well equipped to discuss this topic, having had to resurrect his career somewhere else. And then Adrian Wojnarowski retired to go be the GM for the New York Knicks. St. Bonaventure's. And I think that brings into light the dominance of Adam Schefter, who I wouldn't call a friend. I know him, but he's on. It's just, I want to dive into that subject of news breaking and everything that transpired today with the retirement of Woj. But before we dive in to some sports, Jay Gruden, if you're listening on the podcast or you listen to the podcast, he's on the podcast as well. There'll be a video out a little bit later today. So that's the former, they were the Redskins at the time, John Gruden's brother, AFL legend, and good offensive mind. But before we dive into some football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. I've seen so much content on the Oklahoma-Tennessee game. Oklahoma kind of making their SEC debut, hosting the Vols, Michigan, USC. Think how much fun that game is going to be. And obviously the NFL, if you want to go to one of those games, if your team is good at baseball and you live in a city where there's playoff baseball, I cannot recommend it enough. Playoff baseball games are awesome. The intensity of them, you're living and dying with every pitch. Been to a lot of them over my life back when the Giants were good, and they're just badass. So if you want to go to one of those, you want to go to a concert, get out, enjoy yourself, maybe even a comedy show, get some laughs in. Do it with my friends at Gametime, because take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I've been known to take a few mulligans on the golf course. I'm not afraid to do that with my takes on football. I'm not always going to be right. I'm going to be way wrong. And early on, I would say all off season, I thought the Patriots were going to be trash. I thought they would look like the Giants or the Panthers. And not only have they not looked like that, they've been pretty good. They easily could be 2-0. And there's a formula to them. Now, the one team I was very on the fence about and feel pretty good about my stance where I sit right now was the Jets. Called them the Notre Dame of the pros. All hype. Just the hype, the media market, the way people talked about them. It's like, what are we talking? They haven't made the playoffs since 2010. Aaron Rodgers, he's 40 years old and he can't move. The defense looks like shit. I think the Pats have a very good chance to win this game. Right before I hopped on, they're a 6-point underdog. I love the Pats +6. And I don't think you're crazy at all if you sprinkle them on the money line. I think this is not a great matchup for the Jets. Let's just call a spade a spade. Their offense is dependent on two skill guys. Well, the Pats have a high-end corner in Christian Gonzalez and just a good overall defense. When you look at, what about the coaching matchup? I want to like Robert Saleh. Rooted for him since the 49ers. He's a bald brother. Seems like a great guy. Love to hang out with him, have some beers, talk about his 17 children, and just talk ball. He'd probably be a fun hang. People really, really like him. He's been a pretty terrible head coach. There's no debating that. It has felt many times like he's completely over his head. So Jerod Mayo's coaching his third game. I if anything, I might give if you told me right now, who would you take? I would take the unknown of Jerod Mayo than Robert Saleh. So it's not like there's some coaching advantage here. And then you look at the style of play. Like the Jets were supposed to hang their hat on defense. Well, their defense has been getting shredded on the ground through 2 games. The Niners ran wild. The Titans last week ran for 130 yards. It was like, what did the Patriots do well? Well, okay, you got a good secondary. Sauce, some other cats. We don't really pass. Our quarterback's going to throw for like 120, 130 yards. As long as he doesn't turn it over, we'll be in the game. Why? Because we can run the ball. They've run for 355 yards. Ramondre has over 200 yards through 2 games. Like, their formula is pretty simple. It's kind of the Mac Jones version several years ago. Play D, run the ball, time of possession, slow down the game. And Jacoby, don't turn the ball over. They actually feel like a better version of the Titans because the Titans have Will Levis, and at any moment, he could just hand you the football. It's like, Will, you want to hand this to the defender? He's like, yeah, here you go. Just take it. Just take it. I don't want it anymore. Like, the Jets easily could have lost last week if Will Levis wasn't playing quarterback. Well, listen, Jacoby's career, he's turned it over. Does not have a pick so far this year. Only has 1 touchdown. But the Patriots are really running the ball. And defensively, this is not, let's use this Thursday night game. A lot of times when you get a new head coach, sometimes he's coming from a different conference, different division, doesn't know your opponents that well, division-wise. Because once you coach for a team for a while, you got the division pretty locked down in terms of their personnel, their tendencies, what they like to do, strengths and weaknesses of the players. Jerod Mayo has been a Patriot his whole life. I mean, for a long period of time, I think the streak was broken last year. Belichick went almost 10 years. I think the streak was maybe 18 games. Didn't lose to the Jets. Owned them. Well, Mayo was not only a player for some of that, but he was definitely an assistant coach for a lot of that. So when it comes to their offensive personnel minus Aaron, he's going to know pretty well. And if you don't think over the years, like him and Bill have spent time talking about Aaron Rodgers and how to defend him, you'd be high on drugs. Jerod Mayo was his team captain on defense. And then as an assistant coach was a big part of the game planning the last couple of years with Bill on the defense. And the defense is just good, at least through 2 games. But the Jets aren't that good on offense. This overreaction to Aaron still throws a good ball. Of course he does. I can't say this enough. He's going to throw a good ball into his 70s. But what made him a great player was all the movement. Well, he can't really move anymore. So you just keep him in the pocket. I think this is a really good matchup for the Pats. I think there is upset potential tonight. And I thought the Jets could have unraveled. And I thought this coming into the season, if they started really slow because they don't have the equity as a team, they haven't won. So if they hit a little adversity, like what could they lean back? So that win last week is ugly. The Titans may be terrible. It was big for them. But like I view the Pats as a better version of the Titans. Play good defense and run the ball. Control the clock, slow down the game. Make it a lower scoring game. It's not like the Jets. I just don't view them as a high-powered offense. Rodgers is not nearly the same guy because the mobility is gone. And they just don't have the weapons. I mean, they got one really good wide receiver. Well, I would say over the course of the Patriots' history, and Mayo's a part of that, defensively, they've been pretty good. If you just got one wide receiver to kind of mess with your operation. Because what was Belichick known for? Taking away your best weapon. Now, Breece Hall's a really good player. But like you can neutralize a good back just by cheating a little bit and stacking the box. So I think there's major upset potential here tonight. And I'll be the first to apologize to Jerod Mayo because if he were to win this game, he's been fantastic. And let's face it, the Jets should win this game. You're almost 7-point favorite at home. Like there's everyone and their mother when the schedule came out gave you a W here. There's a lot of pressure, man. And like I said, want to like Robert Saleh, the guy, there's zero evidence he's a good coach. I don't think there's anyone that watches football or works in football that would say their offensive coordinator's a good schematic offensive mind in Nathaniel Hackett. And then Rodgers kind of takes over, which was great the majority of his career. It's like kind of like Peyton Manning. I'll just take over. well, Rodgers not quite the same anymore. So I think this thing could get weird, and they could get weird fast. Touchdowns, TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. I like to call it a tug. Whatever you call touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how you score them. We just want to bet touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? I know I do it all the time. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Okay, Bryce Young did an instant reaction video a couple days ago when the news broke, which wasn't really that shocking. Some of the takes were shocking. I understand shitting on the Panthers, but if you just watch the guy play, he was horrendous. Now, you can't be a bust 2 games into your second year. It's impossible. It's impossible. You can be a bad player, which he has been. He has not been a good player. He's been atrocious, but he's not a bust because his career is not even remotely close to being over. I think he's 23 years old. And Baker Mayfield on Wednesday was asked about Bryce in a situation. I think he brings up a good point.
Obviously, mine didn't happen in the same time frame with Bryce, but quarterback's hard, especially for young guys when you're not surrounded with the pieces that not given the opportunity to have success. And so that's a lot of the time guys have the talent, they might have the brains, but they don't have the right opportunity, the right fit. I'm sitting here right now in a way better fit than the other places I've been. And that's not to put other teams down, but it's a matter of the pieces around you, the coaches, and for Bryce, a guy that, I can relate to this, finding that belief within yourself again, and he'll get it. His story's far, far from finished.
Clearly he knows from experience going to some place that is just well run, people believe in you, you gain your confidence back, you can change the course of everything. Now, Baker to me is more talented than Bryce, throws a better ball, bigger. This version of Baker kind of slimmed down a little bit, looks like a pretty good athlete, but he's right. Bryce Young, if I was a betting man right now, is going to be on another team. Well, why would you say that? They just traded all that for him. I think the heavy favorite to have the #1 overall pick right now would be the Panthers. And if they get the #1 overall pick, that means their quarterback play was really bad, regardless if Bryce comes back and even looks better than he did if they keep losing games. I think they would take a quarterback. It's like, okay, what happens to Bryce? Is he a tradable player? I texted with Jake Rosenberg today. Roseman's right-hand guy, knows contracts. I said, the Panthers' cap hits for Bryce are really big because they gave him like $30 million signing bonus. And then that gets kind of spread out throughout the 4 years of his guaranteed contract. I said, if you trade for that, that doesn't impact the trading team, does? He said, no. The only thing you inherit is the cash, the true cash on an individual year you own. And that is basically just his base salary and his roster bonus. So I looked. In 2025, if you were going to trade for Bryce Young this offseason, just take a flyer on him, 7th round pick, you would pay him $4.2 million in 2025 and $5.9 million in 2026. I don't think any team's trading for that. Now, could the Panthers eat a little money and facilitate it? Maybe. But based on what we've seen, how bad it's been, I'm not sure he's a tradable player. When he's making good backups in the NFL make $4 or $5 million. Sam Darnold last year for the 49ers signed for $4 million, who can be your backup quarterback. We're not even sure. It's impossible to feel good that he would be a good backup right now because we know he's not a starting quarterback currently. So not because he's benched, but you can't roll him out as a starter and expect to win. A lot of former players, a lot of people. Mel Kiper went on a good rant. the Panthers are easy to shit on. And I don't disagree with the crazy roller coaster and the turmoil that the owner has brought on, the coaching changes. That's fair. But you can watch individual plays in a vacuum and go, this is bad. Like, I can't function as an offense when there's a guy in the flat or a guy wide open on a slant route and you're skipping the ball to him. And like I said this when I reacted to the news, he will play more games this year. If I had to put the over-under on games Dalton starts, it's definitely less than 4 because I don't expect them to win. He easily could get injured. He's 37 years old. Bryce will not only be back, he will play a lot this season. But if he is going to be a tradable asset at the money in which he is owed because he was the number 1 overall pick, I do think he has to show something. You can lose a lot as a young player. We've all seen it, right? With young players that become really good players over time. Usually they show some stuff. Like, God, he's got really accurate, great deep ball thrower, great athlete. He just got some moxie in the second half of games. He's shown nothing. So right now, to me, if they were to get the number 1 overall pick and it plays out like how it's gone, I think they would have to cut him. Which, regardless of Bryce, doesn't change how much money he's getting. It was all guaranteed. But there's a decent chance he's just available for everybody. And then I think for no money, a lot of teams would be very, very interested in taking a flyer, not to give him a starting quarterback. Like, it's been that bad. Like, he's already there. It's not even like nobody would. I don't even think that many teams would feel good about him as their backup. I think if anything, they'd bring him in to compete to be the backup, which sometimes you need that. Look at Sam Darnold. Happened to him. Boom. $10 million. Now he's starting quarterback. Things are going really well. Kind of shocking news today that Woj retired. Just quit. Just said, I'm done. I read an article today that said he had $20 million remaining on his contract. Damn, this guy was that over it. Now, let me say this. What I do for a living, just giving opinions, reacting to games, is dramatically easier on my mental health than constantly just texting people in the league asking for information. I can't even imagine how exhausting that is to be Woj, to be Schefter, to be Shams, to be Rap Sheet, to be these guys. That would, I guess you could pay me $7-8 million to do it, but you have to just like love the news breaking. Now, it's a very lucrative profession, and there is a very, very small percentage of people that make a lot of money because they get all the stories. And I think ESPN, when they hired Woj, overvalued Twitter. Like, he's big on Twitter breaking stories, but they're a television network. And I was thinking about this today. If I'm Adam Schefter, who is the best in the biz, he's also good on television. I'm not trying to like rain on Woj's retirement parade. He was awful. Like, it was uncomfortable watching him on television. I don't blame him. Lifetime newspaper reporter, just not his thing. But ESPN didn't just pay $7 million a year for the Twitter account, right? And they put him on television constantly, and it was really, really rough to watch. So if I'm Adam Schefter, I'm obviously every bit as good on the internet, breaking stories, but I'm good on television. People are lined up to book me on their shows. I'm a huge part of the coverage in everything we do. What am I worth? If Woj, think about the numbers. Now, I get basketball's different because they play all the time, but the American pastime, the one sport we all watch, is football. The number 1 newsbreaker who's good online and on television. I was thinking, if I'm Schefter, am I worth triple what Woj is worth? And I know the economics of it when you're already at these big numbers, but I do think it brings into light how like undervalued Adam is, because they broke the bank for Woj, and it was tough to watch him on TV. He was just on TV because they paid him all this money for his Twitter account. It's not like he was breaking stories. The first time I started reading him, you know, Schefter's been a newsbreaker in that I feel like the majority of my adult life. When I first got out of the NFL, and was working in local radio, Mark Jackson was the coach of the Warriors. And it was an up and down experience, I think, for the organization and Mark. And he had like a stripper side girlfriend, and he was going to church on Sunday. There's a lot going on. Some guys on the team didn't like him. Some guys loved him. The ownership clearly wasn't that comfortable with some of the shit he was doing and started leaking stuff to Woj. And Woj used to hang his hat on writing the best articles because he would eviscerate people. A huge reason Mark Jackson has never been a head coach in the NBA since that Warriors experience. Just Google some of the articles Woj used to write. It almost felt like when the NBA or ESPN, which is kind of the same thing, bought Woj, whatever, 7-8 years ago, that stopped. There was no more of that. But I was listening to Ethan Strauss' podcast today. A Woj bomb was not so-and-so got traded. It was an article that was about to empty the clip on somebody. And you were going to read it and go, holy shit. The Mark Jackson stuff, like he rattled off a couple of those. They were a sledgehammer to his career. And then ESPN, who's in bed with the NBA, just paid for that to stop. And that's never really been Adam's business. Obviously, Adam breaks stories, but I don't remember him writing too many articles that were like eviscerating guys' character. And that just ended. And I know Woj, he tweets. I'm never been the biggest Woj guy. I think sometimes the way he I don't know, just something about him. He pivot, just hearing some of these stories about him. Respect anytime you have that many contacts, you have that many information. Like you're obviously good at your craft. He's clearly a hard worker, but let's call a spade a spade. I mean, one of the most overpaid human beings in the history of television. How many people have ever been paid $7 million a year to essentially be on TV and couldn't be on TV? It was that rough. Schefter's the complete opposite. They've thrown him on NBA games. So it feels like I'm peeing on the parade here, but it is what it's just first thing that came to my mind when I saw it, because I think Adam's dramatically underpaid.